Bog Panda.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bog Panda, a very special episode of Bog Panda. I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything, and joining me, as always,
Under duress. Hi, everybody. This is Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram. And if you get a moment, perhaps ignore this content and look at some of our other videos. Give those a subscribe and a like. Check out our merchandise, and we'd appreciate it.
so we collectively together decided that, maybe we should try some different types of content, still sticking with retro gaming, but maybe something that's a little more adult leaning.
Yeah, so we's a little strong, but I believe this was your idea. Well, I don't believe, I know this was your idea. But I became open to it eventually. I do think we'll have to see, and folks watching the video will know whether I was successful. And I think we should be in black and white, and maybe even a little film grain going on in our videos. We'll see if I can pull that off. We'll see.
I was gonna say, you say all this now, and then none of that's in the actual video.
It's possible. So you're gonna know at this point, if you're watching the video, when I was able to figure that out or not.
Well, what we're doing today is we're trying something new. We're going to call this Bog Panda After Dark. And we're going to tackle reviews of some more adult leaning video games. Now, what is your sort of experience with this type of game, sir?
Highly limited, sir. You have been my Sherpa to the world of adult games. Even so, and Amiga had, there was a pretty good diet under the Commodore Amiga of these kind of games. And then just, I don't know where you would put Leisure Suit Larry, whether that falls in. I mean, certainly there are adult, I guess Leisure Suit Larry is an adult themed game. So that one, yes, tons of experience with Leisure Suit Larry, but that's a, kind of a staple for a lot of folks. But had not done that. I mean, but you're the fine man who introduced me to Custer's Revenge on Atari and other things as well. So limited would be my experience, but I think we should ask Mike, how many titles do you own?
I'm pretty experienced in this department.
Thought maybe.
So totally legally, my friends and I would trade games on PC, copying totally legal ROMs of games onto floppy disks and passing those back and forth and stuff. I don't know how it started with it, but we discovered that these types of games existed. So whenever possible, of course, as young growing men, we tried to play these games whenever we could. Most of them were terrible, though. A lot of these games were made and sold just solely on the content, and they just weren't really playable good games. So that's why I think it's gonna be fun to kind of do this little bit of a series and kind of go over some of these games, the good and the bad, and kind of separate, which ones are real playable games and which ones are just trying to sell off some controversy and things like that. You brought up a great one, Leisure Suit Larry. I remember seeing ads for it and reviews of some of the early Leisure Suit Larry games as a kid before I'd ever actually played them, just being completely intrigued by that. And then getting my girlfriend super into Leisure Suit Larry when it made the jump over to PlayStation 2. And she got really into it. And just recently, at the time of us recording this, for Christmas, we got the full Leisure Suit Larry collection. So it's all of the games, which is available on Steam. And it came with a couple of the soundtracks and a Leisure Suit Larry art book, his digital art book as well. So those are ones we definitely have to delve into at some point in this little After Dark series that we're doing. But of course, now we're going to talk about the first game. And I figured we would take it easy for the first one, nothing too extreme, nothing too obvious either, like Leisure Suit Larry, because I think that is one that's become embraced by enough people that people know it exists, and it's kind of a beloved title at this point. Start with something a little light, a parody game. Now, are you a Street Fighter guy, sir?
So we've kind of covered it a little bit before that I'm not as passionate of a fighting game guy as you are. I enjoy them, and I'll play them for a while. And so of them, Street Fighter, I see more Mortal Kombat and Tekken are the types of ones that I still kind of favor the most. But probably Street Fighter would be third place one there, so I like it.
Yeah, Street Fighter's up there for me. It's not my favorite. Mortal Kombat would be my favorite. But Street Fighter's up there because Street Fighter, particularly Street Fighter 2, the first Street Fighter was very similar to like the early karate games, which were, sort of the precursors to the one-on-one fighting games. And Street Fighter 1 was just kind of a slightly better variation on that. Street Fighter 2, though, is really what laid the groundwork. It felt like a completely different game and really laid the groundwork for what we think of as fighting games now. And so many games that came afterwards copied Street Fighter 2. With this particular game, they did a parody of that because this was at a time when every gaming company had their own Street Fighter 2 clone that they were putting out. So much so that there was actually some lawsuits and different things. And there's one particularly infamous game called Fighter's History, which is available on At Games products if you have those. It came on my mini. The second game was on the mini. And the first game, I believe, is a part of ArcadeNet where you can play it through there. But Fighter's History was actually sued. Capcom sued Data East. Fighter's History doesn't just kind of borrow the aesthetic of Street Fighter 2. If you blink real quick, it's the same game. If you just glanced over and both games were playing on two different monitors, you'd be hard pressed to convince somebody who's not familiar with the games that these are two different games that they're looking at. They're that similar. So in the midst of all of this, there is a company, well, there's a system called TurboGrafx 16. It's called PC Engine overseas. PC Engine was really big in Japan and overseas, and the North American variant of that, TurboGrafx 16, did okay. It was not nearly as big here as it was overseas, but they decided to put out a parody of Street Fighter, one of their developers, and this game is called Strip Fighter 2. So what did you think when I initially pitched you this game? Were you familiar with this game?
No. Again, my catalog is significantly smaller than yours in this area, so I couldn't draw upon past experience. So I had never heard of such a thing, just like I had never heard of Custer's Revenge. Actually, maybe I had heard of Custer's Revenge, but definitely had never heard of this. It left me wondering what were the unanswered questions of Strip Fighter 1. To say where is that treasure at? But it made, I guess, sense that I could see this as a concept. So I thought it was interesting.
And just in case for anybody who's unsure, there is no Strip Fighter 1. It is just Strip Fighter 2, because they are parodying how Street Fighter 2 was cloned by so many other things. And the game does sort of mock that look and style of gameplay, but with an all-female roster.
Indeed.
of combatants to choose from, and some interesting between match cutscenes. So now, just to kind of backpedal a little bit, were you a TurboGrafx 16 guy at all?
No, not at all. Until, exposure through Super Console X into some of the catalog and going like, wow, this was actually a pretty cool system. There's some pretty good stuff on it. But that was until Super Console X. I never had a chance to interact with one.
Yeah, I did play it. I had a couple friends who had it. I never had one myself. Limited exposure here in North America compared to everywhere else in the world, where it has a much more robust library and multiple variations on the system and things like that. We kind of got the bare minimum here. If you're a fan, anybody who's watching this though, if you're a fan of old school Konami games, it's definitely the system to check out. Konami was one of their main developers. They did tons of games for the system, and at this point they actually own the bulk of the library of the system, so much so that they released their own TurboGrafx 16 mini not that long ago. And if you get a chance to pick that up, it's a great quality product. The word mini is very loosely used there because it is almost full size. It's, I think, maybe a half an inch smaller on the sides or something along those lines, but it is a nearly full-sized recreation of it with the Konami library of 80 games or something like that on there. So it's an excellent product. And also too, since we are kind of talking about Street Fighter 2, A game you will see people go crazy over online if you start looking up Street Fighter is the Street Fighter 2 version that came out for TurboGrafx 16. It is one of the best home conversions of that game. Was not released in North America though. So it became sort of this fabled thing. I can even remember as a kid, like people paying huge amounts of money for import copies of that game. It is on Super Console X, so I definitely recommend people checking it out totally legally. However, you get your ROMs. It was also the largest. So they use their own proprietary memory cards instead of cartridges that they called Hue cards. And there was also a CD add-on, and then later editions of it were just CD based. But when they were using the memory cards, this was the largest memory card that they had ever released a game on, the actual Street Fighter 2, not Strip Fighter 2. Strip Fighter 2 is what we're talking about today, though. So when I pitched you this game, what were you expecting?
Pretty much what I got. So I figured he'd find a way to work into gameplay that, first of all, I expected a full female battalion fighting class. I didn't anticipate anything different there. Wasn't surprised there. And then I figured there'd probably be, I mean, but most of the female character, male and female characters in many of these fighting games are dressed a little racy and those types of things. So I figured this will go up a notch, and it did from there. And
well, Kelly, they have to be able to move around. You can't have
That's
constricting
right. That's
clothing
right.
on when you're fighting.
That's true. That's right. I stand corrected. so clearly able to fight a lot, and so and then as you can anticipate, and although it doesn't happen with a ton of frequency, kind of, and this was also not a shock to say, I bet you some of the special moves are going to harken back to the title of this game, so you get kind of a little bit of that action, and then. While I didn't know what the execution of the cutscenes were going to be, I fully expected them. So.
And what did you think when you got and also just kind of for anybody who does totally legally grab a ROM of this game and play it, you have to play it on the at least medium to harder difficulty settings to get any of this content. If you play it on the easier settings, you don't see any of the more adult moves or the cutscenes. So you have to go straight to at least medium. And it's not the easiest fighting game. It's not like even using Street Fighter 2, since that's what it's directly referencing as an example. If you put Street Fighter 2 on easy, the average kid's going to get pretty far into that game. And that's good because you're teaching them the game mechanics and things like that. Even if you move this down to easy, it's not that much easier. But when you start on the medium level, that's where the good stuff kind of kicks in. So what did you think when you got your first cutscene?
So again, was anticipating something, and then because at least on the version of my Super Console X, it's Japanese version, and so all the instructions and all the information's in Japanese, which I'm not fluent in at all. So I'm kind of navigating my way through that a little bit, and so I'm sure that the young lady that appears on the first cutscenes, she seems to be very supportive of me, giving me words of encouragement, telling me to kind of keep going on. But he shows up, and she's an attractive young lady in a bikini, and I just you start to go, I wonder, and I go, and I lost my first match. I did because the game's not good, and you're kind of getting the bearings on and all that. So I said, I need to win a couple matches here, see what happens.
Don't let her down.
That's right. She's pulling for me. I got it. She's like, you can do it. I'm sure that's what it sounded like to me. So I went back in and I did it. And she came back again, and there was a progression of shedding of apparel as you continue to do well, which in all this was this wasn't 256 colors. I think it's above that, but it's in that mode where you're not getting high res imagery in these games. You're getting video game imagery of these games, but they kind of keep coming in, and there's this kind of the awkward slow pan down to kind of make sure you're fully aware of if things have changed since the last time you saw your fan. So,
and how did her encouragement progress through these?
I don't know. I mean, I don't
Give
know
us
if
the
there's
Kelly Tool translations.
yeah, no, I'm gonna stick with my holders just so there's a deciduousness to to the young model in terms of just like the leaves fall out of the trees. There's things that fall off the model as you continue to progress, but in a kind of an expected fashion from there. So, yeah. So get through those. Get the games. Take that encouragement. Fight hard. Stay on medium to hard as not hard, difficult, medium to difficult, and kind of keep plowing along there, and you'll be able to see the cutscenes for yourself. So,
And there are multiple young ladies who come to visit throughout the
yep.
course of these cutscenes if you're playing your way through the full game. What I'll say about this game and why I thought it was good to start here. First off, it gives a reference point to a famous game because they are parodying Street Fighter and everything that happened in the wake of that. But also, too, this is a competent, playable game.
Yeah.
It's not the best graphics on TurboGrafx 16, but the game looks fine. Good animations, decent controls. Again, it's not as good as actual Street Fighter 2 on TurboGrafx 16, but a lot of these more adult games are just being sold off of the fact that they're adult games, and the gameplay really takes distant second place to the actual content. So this is a decent playable game. So I thought this would be a good place to start because it's a game I can actually recommend if people are looking for a different fighting game to kind of throw into the mix there.
Yeah, definitely was impressed. I had low expectations on gameplay. I just anticipated that's not why this game was created. It was to give you a good game experience. But I felt it was, a very passable fighting game.
Yeah, it's not going to compete with actual Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. It's not trying to though either. It is a parody game, but unlike something like say Custer's Revenge, which is bearably playable, I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. This is a full functioning game, so I thought this was a good place to start with that.
Yep.
So what did you think? Was it too painful getting through the first After Dark?
No, no.
You heard it, guys. We're going to be doing more of these. Kelly said he's all in. Go harder the next time. But I thought it'd be cool to kind of touch on some of these games. And obviously, it is slightly more adult content. So we could call these, After Dark, just as a way, if this is something you maybe don't want to watch with your kids or anything along those lines, it kind of gives you a heads up in the title. But I think we got through it in a pretty clean fashion.
Yep.
Kelly was able to keep his double entendres to a minimum, which is always good. Anything else you want to add, sir?
No, and Mike was able to keep his no entendres to a minimum, which was good as well. So nope, not for this week. Less painful than I thought. We'll have to figure out if this is in our regular cycle or whether this is what we might call bonus content for the channel, which I think we might want to keep it not as affiliated with our regular drops, just to create a certain amount of distance. But Mike and I'll sort that out offline. So thanks for watching. We'll warn you, you'll get the After Dark labeling, and so you're not surprised on those. And I guess there'll maybe be a couple more of these. So you got that going for you. So
long running series.
thanks for watching, folks.
Thanks, everybody.